I'm Calvin Turley, and this is my Elmwood. To be quite honest, I've never had a particular interest in family history, genealogy, in graveyards, even historic sites such as Elmwood, until a few things happened. One of those was I became the custodian of 4 family Bibles: the Rayner family Bible, the Turley family Bible, the Jones family Bible, and the Caldwell family Bible. The Caldwells are located here, the Turleys are located here, and some of the Rayners are located here. So that was an inspiration. And then lastly, I was invited to join the board of directors of Elmwood Cemetery, and that kind of topped it off. So, you know, I have several friends who have been very involved in genealogy over the years, and I just didn't get it until the pieces of the puzzle were laid out before me, and then I started to get it. So, you know, being here in this place makes me feel connected. You know, some people might not feel that way, but for me it makes me feel connected with my past, which, you know, gives me a certain level of meaning that I didn't appreciate before. But anyway, I have Rayners here, I have Caldwells here, and I have the Turleys here. The Turleys, from all I can understand and gather, came from Arlington, Virginia, and they headed this way early part of the 1800s. And William Bruce Turley and Thomas Jefferson Turley are the first 2 that I know of that came and settled in this area. Thomas Jefferson Turley, I'm not sure where he lived when he first came to Memphis. William Bruce Turley apparently lived at Raleigh, which was a community that was settled before Memphis, Tennessee was. Everybody in the Turley family, it seems to me, have been lawyers, statesmen, Supreme Court members, so forth and so on, a pretty esteemed group of people. So, you know, probably the most well-known is the gentleman right behind me, Thomas Battle Turley, who was a Civil War veteran and served in the United States Senate, I think probably about 1905, served a term there. Didn't want to go back, apparently. And, you know, was a well-known guy. He died in 1909, I believe it is, or maybe 1910, and lived down on Wellington. So Linden between, or Wellington, which is now called Danny Thomas, between Linden and Beale Street, had 4 houses. 3 of them were Turleys and 1 of them was a Maury. And one of the Maury girls ended up marrying, you know, one of the Turleys. So, you know, there was a connection there. And then they began to move out to East Memphis at that point. I think about 1918, there was only 1 Turley living down there, and that was Irene Turley, widow of Thomas Battle Turley, and the rest of them, you know, moved to, actually my dad lived right across the street from where I now live on Harvard Avenue. And then Flora lived down on Parkway, and Thomas Jefferson Turley Jr. lived at the Memphis Country Club at Southern and Bunton. But anyway, it was an outstanding group of people, a good lineage to have. I don't know that I can claim such outstanding characteristics as these people, but it's a good crowd. The Rayners have several plots here. They came from eastern North Carolina, and Eli Rayner he came from eastern North Carolina and settled in Oakland, Tennessee, which is interesting because when I began to enjoy trying to put these pieces of the puzzle together, on several occasions I went to Oakland, Tennessee to find any remnant I could of the Rayners having been there. And I could never find anything in the cemetery out there. And then one day I was talking to a farmer who I was doing business with. We were just, I don't know, just having conversation, and I mentioned my son's name, which is Rayner. And he said, "Oh, that's an interesting name. I farm a place called Rayner Bottoms." He said, "You ought to come out and look at the cemetery sometime." So that was a big piece of the puzzle. And I went out there, and there was an obelisk, which is still there, upright. It had fallen over to the side when I first saw it, but it is now upright. And it has four, groups of the Rayner family with at least 4 children having died at young ages, like 9 months old and so forth and so on. And I guess about 18 and 50, they got their fill of living in a rural area like that and wanted to move into Memphis or the suburbs of Memphis, and moved to what is now called Rayner Street, which at that time was merely a farm. And they farmed cotton right off Pigeon Roost Road, now called Lamar. And then the Caldwell family came from Columbia, South Carolina. I think they came here involved in the railroad business, and several of them were in the cotton and wholesale grocery business, which were common trades back in those days. So anyway, that's kind of my attachment to this place. I have real estate here. I'm not looking forward to moving in, but it's going to happen. Again, some people are maybe not comforted by some knowledge of their lineage. And to a certain extent, I was that way. But now that I have begun to investigate those family lines, it's hard to say, but I just feel connected to the past, which for some reason is just comforting to me. I don't know what it is, but it's I'm real happy that I opened those Bibles that I got on the Elmwood board. And one thing I forgot to say earlier is that my son Alex, my oldest son, who's 40, and I took a day off probably 4 or 5 years ago and came to Elmwood, went to the cemetery in Somerville where the Joneses are buried, and went up to the cemetery in Jackson. I believe it was called Riverside, I'm not quite sure. And we took pictures of every headstone, wrote down every birth and death date, found our Macquarie relatives who were born in Northern Ireland. But those 3 things together is how I began to explore these things, and it's a blast.